Is it live?
Have you ever been so confident you were able to easily do something? Those things that make you feel confident are making you able to start daily tasks.
Because you have a timer.
Oh, okay. Lovely.
Your seventh grade graders. It's incredibly valuable for you guys to be here and to be just a wonderful support system for them. Because at some point you will be in their shoes, right? And they have worked tirelessly to put themselves out there, to really be thoughtful about what they're writing, the words that they're presenting, and how they're presenting their words articulately and out loud. So please be mindful of the work that they've put in. It is really your job to support them, to be really quiet, to be good listeners, okay? That kind of means keeping your body really still, not being a distraction, if you have a piece of paper in your hand, I would probably just glance at it right now. It's not something you really need in your hand. Okay, perfect. We have 4 presenters. I'll lead you the way all the way through it. So this can just be really loud, especially in gym. There's going to be a live feed. 5. Huh? What? Oh, yes. Okay. No, there's 4.
Which 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then.
Oh, there. Okay. Sorry. There's a live feed, so please just be really mindful of that. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Oh, as I look over to you, I'm remembering something. Between each speaker, the judges over here will be deliberating, and they are going to need silence to read their rubric and really make sure that they are writing down their best thoughts and their best feedback to help the speakers in the future. So please be really mindful of that. After a speaker is finished, that's not a time to move around, to shuffle, to speak. Does that make sense? Okay. It's also not the time to be going to the bathroom. It'll be fairly short, so try to just remain in your seats. If anybody is ever speaking or performing, that's definitely not a time to go to the bathroom or to ask for a drink. So just remain in your seats. I know you guys can all be patient and thoughtful and supportive. Okay? I think we're good to go. Ms. Robbins, do you mind just closing that door? Thank you. Speaker, so take a little breath. Smile. Face the door for the breath. Good to go?
All right. Good morning. Welcome to Tremont Consolidated Schools' 12th Annual School Speech Contest. The purpose of the contest is to provide an opportunity for formal public speaking for all 7th and 8th grade students. This year, 7th and 8th grade were required to write and present open letters. Letters of protest or appeal addressed to specific entities. The highest scoring students will present to you today. The top 2 students from today's contest will go on to represent Tremont School at the district speech competition on March 29th at Camp Beechcliff. This morning we will hear speeches from 4 young men and women. The contestants will be judged on the composition and delivery of their speeches. When a student's name is called, he or she will come forward and may begin when ready. After the speech is given, the judges will have 5 minutes to complete their rating sheets. Okay. I will then call the next speaker in order. When the last student has given his or her speech, the judges will take time to deliberate and choose our winners, at which point we will take a short break. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the judges for today's contest. They are Jandria True, principal of Tremont Consolidated School, and Kalina Higgins. Kalina is the Tremont Consolidated School alumnus and district speech competition winner from 2017. We will now begin the speeches. Our first speaker will be presenting virtually, and she is Loli Illis. She'll be on the back. If you just kind of want to spin your chair just a little bit, and she will be presenting on the back. Give it a moment. We have pull her up onto the lead. Make sure she is set to go. Thank you for your patience.
All right, Lily, I think you're good to go.
Okay. To every person of the world, I have OCD. When I say this, you probably imagine a tidy and clean house with no loose edges, spotless countertops, no crumbs, no icky germs and smudges, and accessories lined up precisely in order, organized with nothing out of place. But these stereotypical thoughts are not even the half of what obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, actually is. If you have OCD, you may do actions like these and thousands more, not because it looks nice or organized, but out of fear. The feelings of fear that rise and burst within you. The feelings of fear that feel like something terrible is going to happen, making you feel like throwing up. These repetitive thoughts are called obsessions. When you get so scared of the bad things in your head happening, you do actions or compulsions that make you feel just right or are done in a certain way to make the feelings go away or feel like you stop the bad things from happening. But this is only temporary. In less than a minute or two, or maybe more, the bad feelings and thoughts come right back to haunt you. I'm making the speech about OCD because I want people to know the real definition of OCD and because I want to help people with it. During the coronavirus pandemic in my 7th grade year, life started to become more difficult than usual for me. I went from being a student that always exceeded the teacher's expectations to one that could barely type or complete my work. I was struggling with anxiety from not being able to complete my work and turn it in on time, and I was starting to have trouble doing everyday things. I like getting out of bed and ready for school. These challenges led me feeling depressed, and so I got connected to an art therapist to help me with my anxiety and depression. Then the school decided to test me for ADHD, but the results showed that I was super focused and rather the anxiety was the concern. As I went into summer vacation, still not knowing exactly what was going on with me, it became excruciatingly hard to move or eat. But for a while, I would also sit on the couch for most of the day. In early July, as my counselor was explaining what OCD is, her description felt very much like what I was experiencing. This led me to the conclusion that I had OCD. In August, I finally got prescribed medication. After that, my OCD felt like it was easier to control, but it took months to find the right fit of medication. Ever since getting help and learning more about it, I have definitely gotten more control over my life. I have also realized that I have had it my whole entire life. It's very important to help people with OCD because it's very difficult in their lives. First of all, you can help by being aware of how you use the word OCD because it has a lot of effect on the OCD community. Using the word OCD as a personal quirk or preference is not okay because it undermines how severe and debilitating the disorder actually is. The words, "I'm a bit OCD," has become a well-used phrase in people's vernacular today. This really affects the OCD community, and it makes society and people believe that people struggling with OCD choose to do the compulsions and can stop them anytime. But that's untrue. Trust me, I know. To go against the OCD a little bit is severely difficult, and the disturbing thoughts will always be there, unless you learn tools to lessen them. Yes, there are people whose OCD does resolve around cleanliness and hygiene, but there are many more compulsions and obsessions than just that. But most importantly, the way that society views OCD can make diagnosis a bit harder because of the way OCD is portrayed. So to sum up, what you can do to help is to be aware of the true meaning, seriousness, and the way you use the word OCD. To everyone out there with OCD, know that you're not alone and it's not helpless. Trust me, I know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lily. The judges will now have 5 minutes to complete their rating sheets. We appreciate your patience.
Lily, do you want to stay on or do you want to watch the live stream?
Wait. Can you pick me off the big screen or can I be facing
Yep.
Thank you for your patience. Our next speaker is Meadow Gilly. Her topic is self-esteem and motivation. Welcome, Meadow.
Dear self-esteem and motivation,
Have you ever been able to start a task right away and get it done with no problems? Have you ever been so confident you were able to easily do something? Those things that make you feel confident or make you be able to start daily tasks are something called motivation and self-esteem. My whole life, I would say I never had a good self-esteem. Everything I thought I said is wrong. I've been struggling with my own self-esteem from 3rd through 8th grade. The reason why I started to struggle with my own self-esteem was I always had to go with another teacher to get help in reading or math. I thought I was so much worse than everyone. If you asked 3rd grade me what was the answer to a certain question, I would show that I didn't know it because I didn't want to say the wrong answer out loud. I'd rather be quiet than get it wrong. But deep down, 3rd grade me knew the right answer. Deep down, that 8-year-old wanted to be the one answering all those questions. 8-year-old me wanted to be better. Now 14-year-old me is still like 8-year-old me. According to Kendra Cherry, an author and educational consultant, self-esteem may be defined as how much you appreciate and like yourself, regardless of the circumstances. Self-esteem is the overall opinion you have about yourself, and you know your own individual worth. Your own self-esteem will make you comfortable about who you are. Self-esteem enables you to look at your potential and commit yourself to move forward. Therefore, positive self-esteem leads to positive self-motivation. According to moreselfesteem.com, self-motivation is a skill that will help you stay on track without the need for other people to push you or remind you of something you need to do. You need to be confident and positive in your inner self to have self-motivation and self-esteem that can help you. Speaking of motivation, you know that goal you've been always wanting to achieve forever now? You know that feeling that pushes you above and beyond? That's your personal motivation. Motivation is why we're determined to do everyday activities and make sure we complete something we start. Everyone pushes themselves to have something or complete something, whether you want to win that game or get that job or finish that project. Our own motivation is why we make it through tough times in our everyday lives. On the other hand, your self-esteem is important because it's how you see yourself and your own worth. But picture you don't have a healthy self-esteem. Picture that you don't know your own self-worth or that you never feel confident. People that don't have a healthy self-esteem tend to have negative self-talk towards themselves. For example, I'm not good enough, or what's the point? Or avoiding tasks just to get away from the feeling you might fail. Or only paying attention to the mistakes you've made in your life and ignoring the positive outcomes you've made. Negative self-esteem is terrible because it brings down the quality of your life, and that will always change you to be negative about yourself. Motivation is the passion we have to start something and push ourselves to finish it. But what if you didn't have that motivation or passion to do anything at all? According to APA Dictionary of Psychology, the definition of motivation is a person's willingness to exert physical or mental effort in pursuit of a goal or outcome. Having no motivation can look like you're not putting in any effort to start or finish something. If you're not completing the tasks that are being thrown at you, you'll get overwhelmed and feel lost and sink deeper and deeper down. You will be impacted by this feeling and give up. You'll never want to get back up again, but the only way to get back up again is to push yourself. This proves that motivation and self-esteem is all tied together. Motivation is your passion, and self-esteem is your confidence. If you have a stable self-esteem, you'll also have stable motivation. In the end, everything balances out between the two. If you don't have stable amount of self-esteem, you won't have motivation. That's because if you don't believe in yourself, you won't believe in the goals that you've set. In the end, I believe that motivation and self-esteem is a key factor in everyone's life. If we didn't have either of these, we wouldn't do anything or accomplish anything in life. As Steve Maraboli, an author and behavioral scientist, once said, "We all make mistakes, have struggles, and even regret things in our past. But you're not your mistakes, you're not your struggles, and you're here now with the power to shape your day and future."
Our next speaker will be Cameron Carter. His topic is local residents should receive free national park passes. Welcome, Cameron.
Dear representatives and senators of Maine, did you know that only half of 1% of the park entry pass revenue in Acadia National Park came from local residents in 2021? I believe that national park passes should be free for anyone residing in a town with land owned by the National Park Service. Think about how you live in a town that is part of a national park, and before you could freely go through it, and you are now getting charged for entry, even though when you pay taxes, some of that goes to the national park. I live on an island that over half of it is owned by the National Park Service, so without a pass, I cannot go through half of the island. In this speech, I will compare both national park and local economies and why I think anyone who lives in a town with land owned by the national park should get a free entry pass. Since 1919, Acadia National Park has had an average yearly visitation rate of approximately 1.7 million people. According to the National Park website, in 2021, 4 million people visited Acadia National Park. So at $30 for a weekly vehicle pass, the park would have made approximately $120 million just in 2021. MDI's year-round population is 10,424. So if everyone bought a year-round pass at $55, the park would make approximately $573,000, which next to a total of $120 million is nothing. This shows that Acadia National Park does not need this money. In most towns and cities owned by national parks, it would take over 10 years to afford a median-priced home on a median income. But according to the census and Realtor.com, in Bar Harbor, median individual income is $24,962, and the median home price is $594,000. So it would take the average resident just under 24 years to afford a median-priced home. However, the park still wants to charge local residents $55 for a park pass. The reason the park is so popular is not only because of the beautiful scenery and nature, but also the infrastructure around Acadia. Hotels, restaurants, convenience stores, and retail stores. Only approximately 151,000 people stay in the park. So where do the other 4 million people stay? In hotels, Airbnbs, with friends or family, or just rentals around MDI, all run by locals. Also, there was an article in the Bangor Daily News that said the park wanted to, quote, acquire land near the Bass Harbor Headlight Station, a popular and congested location within the park. But why do they need to have more land when they own both sides of the Lighthouse Road for the last quarter mile? Also, the land should be left for the public because there is a housing shortage and it could be made into development for people who need to move or are moving here. The money and acknowledgement that comes from free park passes would mean a lot to local people. The locals are the ones who make these visits possible. In conclusion, I believe that national parks should not charge local residents for national park passes because locals make up only half of 1% of revenue from park passes. However, we have to deal with all the tourists. We pay income taxes with a share of that going to support the park, and we are the reason there is all the infrastructure around the park. The park owns over half of MDI, so we can't enjoy the land without a park pass. I encourage our representatives to join with other congresspeople that represent states with national parks to change this. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Pixie Urquhart Asbury, and her topic is depression. Welcome, Pixie.
Dear you, do you know anyone with depression? If you do, what do you know it's like? If you think of just simply crying or being sad, you have just a slight idea of what depression can be like. Depression needs to stop being compared to one single emotion, and it needs to be talked about more. Imagine that you got invited over to a friend's house and you're excited to go. Would you cancel the plans or would you cancel the plans last minute? I bet most of you would still choose to go, right? I've had depression for a while, and a common thing I do is distance myself from my people around me, which is why if you would ask me if I would cancel the plans with friends, I would often say yes. In my speech, I will talk about the signs of depression, my personal experience, and ways for friends and family to help. First, let's talk about the signs of having depression. The signs I list are most common in children, but everyone can experience them. According to Mayo Clinic, some signs may be loss or gain of appetite, losing interest in activities or things that you like, changes in your sleep pattern, weight gain, weight loss, concentration problems, being more irritable, deeper than usual conversations, withdrawing from social activities, and a drop in self-esteem. Moving on back to the question of, would you choose to go or would you cancel the plans last minute? A majority of people, specifically teens and children, avoid interaction. Sometimes there are plans that have been set a week before or even in the middle of making plans. Then I decide I don't want to go and say I can't or I'm busy. Even though I could go, I decide it's too much and sit at home in my bed wondering why I chose to do this to myself. Next, I'm going to share my experience with depression. And no, this isn't all going to be about me yelling at my mom or me crying. I mean, those things do occasionally happen, but I'd like to mention that it hasn't happened in a while. Some days I wake up like I don't know what depression is, but more of the mornings I have to dread waking up for a few reasons. 1, I'm probably still very tired. 2, if it's a weekday, I don't want to go to school. And 3, some days I wish I didn't wake up at all. And I guess that's why I'm not considered a morning person. Anyways, another way depression can affect my everyday life is some days I don't eat for hours and I'm still not hungry. But other days I eat to the point it makes me sick and I feel like throwing up, which isn't a great thing when you have a massive fear of vomit. Also, I lose a lot of my motivation. For example, this past year, I cleaned my room in December and there were still candy wrappers from Halloween along with some mold inside cups. And no, that probably wasn't my greatest moment. A lot of the time I feel alone, even if I'm in a room surrounded by people that do care about me. It could be that I'm a very emotional person and I don't like to talk about it or show it, and occasionally from time to time I sit on the bathroom floor or in my bed and cry for no specific reason. But it happens a lot less often than it used to. I think the last 2 years were definitely some of my lowest points. I felt helpless a lot, I hated school, I was having thoughts about harming myself almost every day. My family situation was rough and I didn't know what to do. I felt miserable. At some points, I didn't think I'd make it to the next year. Those were the days I'd cry more. Lastly, I'm going to talk to all of you. If you're a parent, a friend, or even a trusted adult to anyone, this can help you give extra support because you can't always tell when someone is struggling or not. American Foundation for Suicide Prevention said that in 2019, 8.9% of kids in grades 9 through 12 had made at least one suicide attempt within the last year. And during 2020, the suicide rates dropped in all age categories except ages 15 through 24 increased, which I thought was a little interesting. At least 3 kids in our middle school, or about 1 in every 10 kids, could have made at least one suicide attempt in the last year. Be the person to find help for someone when they're too scared to do it themselves, and they will appreciate it eventually, even though it's not in the moment, because no one wants to feel like their life isn't worth living. Getting help can come in many different ways, like blood tests to see if you're deficient in anything, or you could get medication. And a very common thing is therapy, which can be nice if you need someone to talk to. Or you could do simple things at home like journaling, setting goals, and even getting out of bed. Even if you know someone who has gotten help for themselves, there can still be days for them that are way harder than the rest. At the beginning, I said depression needs to be talked about more. This speech was my way to contribute to talking about depression. And more people still need to share their experiences because it won't always affect another person the way it affects me. I hope after this speech you were able to learn more about depression and remember to be honest and open about your feelings.
And our last speaker of the morning is Hannah Lawson. Her topic is sexual harassment. Welcome, Hannah.
Dear everyone, have you ever been in a situation that made you feel uncomfortable or not welcomed? Maybe you were in danger or you were being forced to do something you didn't want to do. Whether it's someone you know or not, it could be a type of harassment. There are multiple types of harassment, but the one I'm going to be talking about today is sexual harassment. People need to be aware of the impact of sexual harassment. In Maine Human Rights Commission, there are some examples of sexual harassment, and here is one of them. June worked as a salesperson at a retail establishment. Two of her male coworkers always told her jokes in a sexual way, and that continued to go on for weeks. Whenever they would start the jokes, she would just ignore them and walk away. The verbal comments started to increase at a rapid rate, and one of the guys would start touching her in a sexually suggested way. June complained to her manager, but all he said was he would take care of it. But the verbal and sexual comments and motions became worse over the following weeks. June then felt forced to leave her employment. June's story isn't an isolated incident. Sexual harassment occurs more frequently than you may think. In this speech, I will explain sexual harassment versus sexual misconduct, how sexual harassment affects people, and what to do when you witness it. The difference between sexual harassment and sexual misconduct always get mixed up. Sexual harassment is not always physical touch. Harassment is mostly verbal comments and gestures. It can also include requests for sexual favors. Sexual misconduct, on the other hand, is completely different. Sexual misconduct is all the different types of harassment and bullying that is known. People often get mixed up between the two, but they are actually very different. Being the victim of sexual harassment may disrupt someone's health in a very bad way that people don't think about. The main health problems being caused by harassment is depression, difficulty concentrating, substance abuse, suicidal thoughts, sleeping disturbances, eating disturbances, and increased stress levels. There may also be others, but those are the big concerns. Having concerns in your mental health makes doing your everyday activities so much harder than normal. Harassers don't realize how mentally draining being harassed is and how much it makes their life so much harder. Witnessing sexual harassment can affect you just as bad as being the victim. Since it's such a frequent thing, lots of people are witnesses, even if they don't realize it. Since it happens so much, there was a system for what to do when you witness anything of the sort. It's called CARE. Create a distraction, ask directly, refer to an authority, and enlist others. It doesn't matter which one you may decide to do. All that matters is you tried to help. If you try to intervene, just keep your safety in the back of your mind. In conclusion, I believe that sexual harassment can be very mentally and physically draining. Being harassed can be very hard on any one person, doesn't matter the gender or age. I believe that by teaching the CARE system an idea of being a witness in school could slow down the rapidly increasing numbers of sexual harassment, because I think that the system is so incredibly stable and works so well. In all the stories that I read in the Maine Human Rights Commission, the individuals who did not receive the help that could have saved them from harassment all felt forced to leave employment just because of the rude and mentally challenging comments. In all, I felt like mostly women who are ages 12 to 34 get targeted the most. When looking at the percentages, 68% of 12 through 34-year-olds have experienced harassment, while only 32% harassed are 35 through 65 plus. Last but not least, stopping the spread of harassment would make the world happier, and I also think it would increase other mental stability in general.
Just like after each speaker, the judges now have 5 minutes to complete their rubric for Hannah. After that, they will go into the ELA room and deliberate for a winner, and we'll take a short break from there. So pause just for about 4 more minutes or so, and then we will take a break. So please stay in your seats. Please remain silent. At this time, the judges will go and deliberate. Please, this would be a great time for you to stand, to stretch, to use the bathroom if you need to. Please stay in the gym, but you may talk quietly. When the judges do return, the expectation is that you return to your same seats and you sit and wait. Thank you very much. staying away from Tayshawn. Yeah. Come stay away from all the wires, please. And can you guys kind of scooch away just to make sure that we don't hit the tripod right?
No.
saw a feed. Parker? Sorry. Go somewhere else. How long has it been going for?
thank you all for your patience in finding your seats. The judges just want me to really hammer home that this was an incredibly difficult decision for them. That's why they were deliberating for what sort of felt like a year, but they were really, really working hard in there. Everybody just had such passion and put out such vulnerability in these speeches that you just really reflected yourselves and really, truly Mrs. Rabaska's program. So I do kind of just want to take a second and thank Ms. Rabaska. I know that she is pretty heartbroken to not be here today. So can we just have a quick little round of applause for Mr. Rabaska? Okay. So we will start with our alternate, and that is awarded to Cameron Carter. Congratulations, Cameron. In second place, Meadow Gilly. And in first place, Pixie Burkhart Asbury. Congratulations to the winners and to all of our participants. I'd like to thank you for attending this year's speech contest. The students worked very hard in their speeches, and it's wonderful to see the support and encouragement they've received from their peers, their parents, and their community. Middle school students, I really do have to commend you for being so thoughtful and respectful during this process. I know it is challenging to sit and wait for so long, but thank you so much for supporting your peers, because they, I'm sure, support you just in the same way back. So thank you so much, middle school students. You may return to your classes and have a wonderful